regarding the person, the steps and then decide to take the road of deception. I was just thinking was when we are raised that generally our normal cycle will tell you that if you, let's say, the Muslim, show laziness and carelessness, forming your salam, or any other deed, you are going to become imam. And it is very oft repeated to a level that everybody accepts that it's a wrong. And same thing also, they lament the fact they're not allowed to burn your home because in the further time you're sleeping. So that's a separate story, but thank you very much just explaining for that nice thing.
But thank you for raising this point. The reason why people say this is that although there is some truth in it, but it's an incomplete statement. The truth of the matter is that if somebody is lazy in his prayer, it can be a starting point for him to drift towards munafiqat. There's going to be a struggle. If you are lazy and you realize you are lazy, you will acknowledge. And you acknowledging the fact that you are lazy is faith, is belief. But there is a thin line. Some people might say that, look, this prayer is a burden. Why should I pray? And this internal struggle begins. And it can lead to kufr. It is not kufr. It is not munafiqat. But there is this, danger sign attached to it that don't be lazy. Because laziness is something which is associated with those who are hypocrites. And it can lead to hypocrisy because once you are lazy, then this whole process begins inside you. Wherein Shaitan would say that, what is the point? Why should you pray at all? But if you say, no, come on, get lost. Prayer is important. It's only that I'm lazy. Then you have actually made a statement of faith. I'm not encouraging people to be lazy about prayers. But what I'm saying is that there is a clear difference. Yeah, there's a clear difference. Because munafiqat is actually kufr. It is rejection of faith from inside. But the process begins when somebody is facing the challenge of practicing Islam, and he finds it difficult, and he says that I don't accept it.
But I still not a conscious decision. That is the difference that I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Just like that, we are not allowed to declare anybody a prophet. I think munafiq has to be treated the same. That we should not declare any Muslim.
Absolutely.
That is the point that I started.
Right.
I agree with his point that sometimes the push is so harsh and so that it's like you don't belong.
Yeah.
That people react and they're not. That's how much push is.
Yeah, this is how it is like.
It is indeed true. And I when I think about it, why it happens, I think one of the things that comes to my mind is that they find such things mentioned in Hadith, they find such things probably mentioned somewhere in the Quran, but they don't understand the context of Hadith or Quran. They don't understand. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. You see, in both the Quran and Hadith, there is some part of the expectation which is mentioned clearly in words, and there is some part which is implied. Now, if you are not taking the implied part seriously or not trying to understand it, you're getting it wrong. And I think most part of the improper presentation of Islam has got to do with this difficulty or inability to understand what is there between the lines as a part of the spirit of the message. And it really needs to be we need to continue to discuss it. And I see it quite often Even in Pakistan, in India or Bangladesh or wherever Muslims are living as a majority, or in their societies, uh, that the new generation is getting wary of things. That when they come across these statements, strong statements. But for Muslims living in the western part of the world to continue telling their new generation in the same style, I think is cruel. It's disastrous. It's actually paving the way for them to just move out. We can't do it. You should be very careful. Yes, please.
Time for another question.
Yeah, please.
So, top of the lecture, you had said that the few religions, they still continue to do good deeds and they be rewarded.
Yeah.
Even after Islam, the acceptance in that implied there is that the people believe people who do good deeds of other religions do good deeds, they'll be rewarded. So this Surah 35, ayat 10, that you do good deeds and you get elevated. Does that apply to all religions?
Yeah, because once you define faith as I have tried to define, you don't have any reason to necessarily accept it. But my definition of belief is to be intellectually honest and therefore to accept what is available before you as an explanation of the unseen world. Right? So, kufr is to reject that explanation which has been made most clearly before you, presented to you. You seem to be getting a feeling that it's right, and yet you reject it. So, whatever faith a person has, given his context and limitations, and he also does good deeds, inshallah, it's going to be raised. Absolutely. Yes, Naif, your turn.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum.
Sir, I'll try and word my question as accurate as I can. When I started listening to your lectures, there's this thing that you often used to mention, which was if you have an altercation with somebody, fight or whatever, the first day you're very angry at them and you think that, whatever you did to them was justified and everything. But that feeling slowly, gradually diminishes over the coming days. And by the third, fourth day, you end up thinking, you shake yourself up and you say, what were you doing and why were you doing this? And it's time to make amends and you move forward in those directions. When I first heard you say this, it felt like something dormant was laying inside me with regards to this, and you saying it act as a catalyst. And I felt like, yes, this is absolutely the right thing to do. But unfortunately, in my life, sir, ever since I've started observing it, it turns out that the other people are completely oblivious to this idea. And every time we try and make amends, we end up hurting ourselves. And I don't quite know how to tackle that. If that makes sense.
You mentioned about me something I don't remember. Maybe I was a good person some time ago. It's not anymore. I think probably I keep learning. I would now, if I would make a statement in that area, I would say that some of the disputes that we have actually belong to the category that you're talking about, not all. And I do agree with you that in some cases, and I would like to say some cases, not many cases, there are people with whom you have disputes. They don't seem to realize anything at all. I think what you said later was that you end up hurting yourself. Don't get to that point. Learn to disconnect yourself, to move out from that situation and to ignore and forget. It is difficult, but it is important. Otherwise, you end up making your life difficult and miserable. There are good people in this world, and I'm telling you, there are many good people. Look for them. There are some who may not be exceptionally good, but they're not evil. They're not really bad. Uh, so, my statement must have been for that category. And there's still others, I don't want to call them evil, but they're difficult people. You have disputes with them, and it seems that no matter what wrong they have done, they are supremely confident that what they did was right. So, I mean, what can you do about it except for the fact that just step out and say to yourself that, look here, I will keep saying salam to him or her, but I don't want to have anything more with the person. Or else you're going to hurt yourself. Yes, Misbah?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
My question is about the how is difference about the difference between Sharia and fiqh. A few weeks ago, I have a discussion with my colleague about this, and I let him very confused. And it's what is the whole new idea for him. And I wanted to ask you if you can guide me how I can explain it clearly.
Okay, I'll give you an example. The Sharia of the Almighty says that you have to say your prayers regularly. However, if you are on a journey and you have a fear and you are kind of fatigued, you can shorten your prayers, right? This is what the Sharia, simple statement of the Quran is. Probably it's verse 101 or maybe 103, one of the two. That is Sharia, nothing else. If you are traveling and if you are in a state of fear, you can shorten your prayer. That's about it. In comes fiqh. Like in the good old days when I was a child, in comes that bowler, Lily. So in comes fiqh, and it says, now, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. The Quran says, if you are on a journey, let us define journey. And then they start defining journey by stating it's 49 kilometers or 42 kilometers or more or less. Now, sir, what do you mean? This is just an opinion. And there are therefore differences. The Almighty has not mentioned it. Now, the Almighty says it's up to you. I will not blame you if you shorten your prayer. This part of what I'm going to say is not really fiqh. I think it's a faulty understanding which has become prevalent, famous. That when you have undertaken a journey for a distance more than what they have specified through their fiqh, then you must do qasr. Oh my goodness. This is actually changing the very purpose that the Almighty mentioned in the case of qasr. It's up to you. So give these examples. The Almighty mentions something which is only to the extent what he has mentioned. And that is what needs to be understood and followed. But then comes human understanding to play its role. And they interpret and they come up with scenarios. And the end result is that there are opinions which people start following. I mean, I face this challenge every day. Even today, I received this telephone call urging me to write for them a statement that if a husband says talaq 3 times in one go, it does not constitute 3 talaqs. But the fiqh says it's 3 and it's all over. Stop. It's all over. The Quran says very simply that a husband has the opportunity, the privilege, if he wants to give talaq in these circumstances with these conditions fulfilled. And he can take his wife back within the waiting period. And in another scenario, another situation, if he again feels like he should again follow the same conditions, and give talaq and take her back if he wants to during the period of iddat. A third time, if he does it, he cannot take her back. So there were people who said, well, we'll give all three in one. But this is actually challenging God's Sharia. But in fiqh, sadly, the lady who approached me said that please give us an opinion in writing, and bear in mind, we are Hanafi Deobandis. I said, what? I mean, you're just Muslims. What do you mean you are Hanafi Deobandis? But that's what fiqh is. So what has happened is that people have learned their religion from their scholars. A scholar would invariably belong to one fiqh or another, and the fiqh is based on the opinions of the senior scholars of the earlier times. They were the ones who understood the Quran and Sunnah directly. The relationship of a common man with the Quran and Sunnah is not direct, unfortunately. They understand it through the opinions of scholars, and that is why there is so much of confusion and disputes. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
I mean, you and me have.
Yeah.
What have we need to now decide how the road will be cleared by our counts. You'll come up with some. How would you categorize that? If fit Sharia or online some Sharia guidelines? Because the reason that I'm asking this question, general understanding is you can go against the traffic laws. As a Muslim, you don't have to worry, but nobody's going to question. It's just these people who have made the rules. Fiqh is the one that you have to be questioned. You will be punished in hereafter. So my question is, the normal law of engagement, the rule of engagement, you decide the society. How many
No. It is going to be, there are two individuals who are traveling together and they have certain things to decide between themselves and they come up with a decision. What they are doing is the right thing to be done. They are talking to each other and coming to a decision, which is what the Almighty expects from us, mutual consultation. It is neither fiqh nor Sharia. It is following the rules that the Almighty has given to us in matters of mutual interest. We should consult each other. It becomes fiqh when you say that when you are two individuals traveling together, and if you take a decision, the decision is going to be followed in all subsequent journeys. And this is what a certain scholar has said. I'm not saying it has been said by a scholar. That is how actually fiqh takes its form. A scholar says, you do such and such thing in such and such situation. This is what is now binding on you as a rule of Sharia, even though what he's saying is just an opinion. So your decision while you are on a journey with another companion is normal behavior which the Quran endorses. Now, coming to the next part, I think, which is more important. We are bound by all contracts, promises, undertakings that we make. When you come to live in a country, or when you even visit a country as a visitor, you promise that you will follow the laws of the country. If you do not do it, you are committing a big sin, which is to break your promise. Now, you can't break your promises. The 10 big major sins that have been mentioned in Surah Bani Israel, one of them is that don't break your promises. So it's breaking your promise when you say that the laws of this country do not apply to me. That is another misunderstanding that really has crept into the minds of many practicing Muslims, that they believe that it's only the Quran and Sunnah and Hadith and fiqh which constitutes God's religion, which is what we have to follow and nothing else. And actually, practically, it is neither Quran, nor Sunnah, nor Hadith. It's only fiqh that they follow. And as a consequence, allow me to say, as a consequence, the scholars, religious scholars become more important than the political system of the society that you are a part of. And it is actually a parallel system that begins to function. And the last thing I would want to say is that this has a history. 300 years ago or so, that is how it used to happen in the Muslim world. I mean, the Islamic Muslim world was actually run by caliphs. And the legal system was run by scholars. They would give a verdict and it would get implemented. So, these colonial masters, these Britishers, Goras, etc., they came and they robbed the local scholars of their, supremacy over others, the rules that they used to implement over others. That control is gone. That is why they're so very upset. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
जैसे आपने फरमाया कि इससे कंट्रडिक्शन अगर कुरान के अंदर फेल करे फिर वन बाय the old man can take say one line you say at the same time Quran saying that I've learned from the lecture also that was for that particular era for those people. I mean, when Quran says that if you say one line or take one person's life, we take one life, it's all about najaiz life which he did. मैं समझता हूँ नाजायज किसी को मारना नाजायज मारना और में तो आप जायज मारते हैं जो जिनके कत्ल की बात कर रहा है अल्लाह ताला कुरान शरीफ में वो लोग थे जो रसूलुल्लाह के साथ कल के साथ खेल खेल रहे थे और झूठे मुनाफिक थे उनके कत्ल के काले बन चुके हैं तो ये कंट्रडिक्शन तो इस तरह खत्म है तो मेरी इंटरप्रिटेशन समझ है वो ये कि नाजायज कत्ल किसी का वैसे ही कोई दुनिया को कर दिया आपने किसी को बचाने जाए सही जैसे सारे बचाए दूसरी चीज मैं आपसे पूछ रहा था कि अल्लाह ताला जो लोग आर्ग्यूमेंट से सबूर इंजील और तौरात को क्यों नहीं अल्लाह ताला ने महफूज किया कुरान शरीफ की तरफ एक सब मुझसे एक और आर्ग्यूमेंट करते हैं कुरान शरीफ लिखा हमने रात बनाई सोने के लिए और दिन रात के लिए और दिन बनाया और अब 10 साल पहले तो ये बात थी कि दुनिया शुरू होती थी सूरज के तुलू होने से जिंदगी खत्म हो जाती थी सूरज के गुरूब होने से फैक्ट्री भी चल रही है हॉस्पिटल भी चल रहे हैं रातों को काम हो रहा है लोग रातों को काम कर रहे हैं ऐसी जो कि नीचे के खिलाफ है तो मैं उस काम में बहुत रहा हूँ कि रातों में जाग रहा था और दिन को सो रहा था लेकिन वो एक तरह से कुरान की कंट्रडिक्शन होगी कि आपको अल्लाह ताला ने फरमाया कि आराम करो रात को आराम नहीं कर रहे काम कर रहे हैं नहीं कर रहे तो ये भी एक लोगों को ध्यान में चीज आती है कि भाई ये
if you are not sleeping at night, which is made for you to sleep, it is the fault of the system. The night time is the most appropriate time for people to sleep. That doesn't really mean that people are not going to go against him. And it doesn't really mean that there are no exceptions. Generally speaking, it's a time of peace and quiet. And, you find yourself more inclined to sleep during night. But if you want to or inclined to, for one reason or the other, to change your nature, then because this life is a test, the Almighty has allowed this possibility to be there. But I'm more interested in the first thing that you've mentioned. Again, okay, we obviously can keep talking about these things. Sometimes we come up with explanations and feel satisfied that what we've explained is right. But the other person may not be satisfied. And obviously this should be an ongoing process. The Quran itself says that you cannot kill another human being except for two reasons. One is that the other person killed somebody and the killer murderer is killed because of his crime of murder. That is going to be done by the system. First, the murder is going to be proved, and then he's going to be killed. And the other reason is that if there is a person or a group of people who indulge in what the Quran says, fasad fil ardh, mischief on earth, which in turn means that there are people who, because of their evil ways, are threatening the lives, the honor, or the wealth of people, like serial killers, like rapists, like people who commit robberies, etc. They are suggested certain punishments to be given by the society, one of which is them getting killed. There's no third reason. The Quran, imagine the Quran for the passage that I mentioned, go and kill them, clarifies that you did not kill them. It is I killed. Why? As I said earlier in my presentation, there are certain projects of the Almighty. He does them, but at times he allows others to get involved and be a part of those projects and thus be able to reap rewards. But this is something that can only happen if a prophet is there who receives direct guidance from the Almighty, and the Almighty says, go and kill them, and then clarifies, Falam taqtulu, you did not kill them. Walakin Allah qatalam. It was Allah who killed them. I'm sure there are some people who would object. Why did he allow humans to do it? That's a different matter. But what I'm saying is that the Quran very carefully avoids being understood as a book that is contradicting itself. That's what it is. And the condition is that you should do tadabbur. Afala yatadabbarun al-Quran. Reflect and ponder. And as I said, allow yourself the luxury of being confused. Muslims don't want to be confused. That is why they like fiery speeches. There are people who give arguments, good or bad, and people say, subhanallah, subhanallah, without even thinking. So, deep thinking is what the Almighty expects from us. And therefore, we must listen to the people who are criticizing us, who are criticizing our faith, so that, we understand what they're saying. We understand the problem that they're pointing at. And one of the outcomes of this exercise would be that, you would know what they are saying, and some of the good people would come close to you if you are sympathetic towards them. And you would know that some others are just criticizing for the sake of it. But we should not come to any hasty conclusions. Right? Telling, please.
I was staying in Portugal about 40 years back. That book said that Prophet used to travel, or he was a merchant and he traveled different cities and countries, and there used to be Jewish people and Christian people, and from there he learned the stories. Well, it was trying to imply that as if he learned from all those stories like Yusuf al-Islam, Kawaqi, or things like that. It was clearly that's how he made up this religion, by listening to the stories of Jewish people in this country as well, right?
I think, when you start approaching the Quran, you should have all these doubts in your mind and then read the Quran. And you will find that the Quran is going to tell you that Quran is not superficial, it's deep. It's not through learning stories from here and there that you can come up with a masterpiece like the Quran. It's far from that. It's very deep. But I'm sure that these criticisms should be there, because unless we have those criticisms, will not be forced to read the Quran properly and deeply. That is what has happened to us Muslims. We are fond of environments where the same stuff is repeated over and over again, which, allow me to say, ultimately creates dull believers. Just repeating things, not understanding them properly and deeply, and no possibility of disagreement. Questions are not entertained, are not encouraged, which is what has caused this message, which was meant for the entire humankind, to be restricted to, Muslims. And we are fond, I've seen it, we are fond of speakers, orators, who very strongly advocate the message of Islam and undermine and insult others as if they're all idiots. That's not a great service to the cause of the message.
Even if you buy that argument that he learned from those people, but there are other things, like you said, you read the code, that how do you know the process of childbirth and the solar system and all these things are mentioned.
And how did he learn things which the Jews and the Christians didn't know themselves?
Exactly.
So if he learned from the Jews and Christians, how could he come up with stuff that differed with them? And what he came as a different narrative appeared to be, to a neutral person, neutral mind, more convincing. How come?
Yeah, like it said, everything is in pain, even the plants and everything.
Yeah.
This information was not me.
I mentioned in my last presentation, when I talked about the personality of the Prophet, one of the things that I mentioned was that, one of the amazing things about the Quran is that at times the Quran corrects the Prophet. He said and did a few things which the Almighty did not accept as something that could be approved. And he said, why did you do it? So, that is another aspect.
He was questioned.
Yeah, he was also questioned. He did everything with all the good intentions, but sometimes, despite your good intentions, you do things which are not consistent with the Almighty's policies. So the Almighty said, Afallahu anka, may Allah forgive you. Why did you allow them? So, these different passages of the Quran put together, when you read them, recite them over and over again, you will say, oh my goodness, this is indeed Allah's book. Honestly, I'm telling you, we say it, but it will come from deep inside. Oh goodness, we have got it now. Wow.
Biggest argument said all those poets in that time, in Arab poets, they could not come up with one ayah like Quran Sharif, which was challenged by Quran in the Quran. They make one ayah like that.
What I'm saying is, this is my final statement. All that I've said today, earlier, or will say later, nothing should make a person believe. All this presentation should only convince a person to read the Quran seriously. It is the reading of the text by the individual at a personal level would enable him at some point in time in his life, some morning, some evening, when he'll say, oh God, this is you speaking. It will not happen through any speech. I'm convinced. Speakers, presenters would only convince you that it deserves to be read. But the true faith, the feeling of faith would come to you when you will read it yourself. Wow. Yeah.
And so, as you pointed out earlier, like those, there are not contradictions, but you said on one hand it says kill them all, and the other. So, I think Ibn Kathir's tafsir or something, he points them out as abrogations. I think he compares one passage where he says that the Sabians, Christians, and people, the righteous amongst them will go to paradise, and then somewhere else it says that
any other religion other than Islam won't be accepted. So I think in the passage, I grabbed a translation and it said that passage referring to the Sapiens Muslim one. It said that the provisions of this verse have been abrogated by that one. So, like, I kind of don't agree with the abrogations, of course, because as you pointed out earlier that you know if it was not from if it was from other than Allah, then it wouldn't be, the message would not have been consistent. So clearly, the abrogations do, according to me, point towards inconsistency. Therefore, I don't accept them. So just curious where this abrogation.
Yeah, it's a very important point.
Yeah.
One of the ways people explain the apparent contradictions is that they're actually abrogations. But if you accept the doctrine of abrogation, then this whole understanding that there are no contradictions in the Quran it goes out of the window, doesn't remain. So it's a very important point. That is what pondering and reflecting is all about,
And then when I asked this question to somebody, he's like, oh, the whole Sharia it wasn't done like overnight. There had to be like gradual changes, and therefore one thing was acceptable back then, but then later on, it was outlawed. The argument was along those lines.
You see, now you might disagree with me, and it's a good thing that we disagree. What I believe is that this second part makes sense. Why? Because the Almighty wanted people to accept His laws properly. And therefore, He allowed them to adopt them gradually. When the Quran was being revealed, because of the gradual process of acceptance of the law, weaker people, were able to then adopt the Islamic Sharia over a period of time. And this is there in the Quran to also enable us to know that when we are inviting somebody towards practicing Islam, we should also allow them the facility of doing it gradually. But there can be no abrogation in policies. Allah would never say that, look here, on one occasion He says, Jews, Christians, Sapiens, Muslims, all are going to go to the paradise. And then He says, oh, no, wait a minute. They're not going to go to the paradise. Only the Muslims are going to do it. This is not abrogation. This is contradiction. Abrogation is in matters of practice, where you need to have a gradual process of evolution so that people are able to adopt, acquire over a period of time. But policies, they never change. I mean, the Imam would not say that, okay, I have decided to have a day of judgment. No, hold on. I've decided there is going to be no day of judgment. How is it possible? What do you mean? So I've decided that Jews, Christians, Sabians, Muslims are all going to go to the paradise. Wait a minute. No. This is not possible. This is what contradiction is. So sadly, what Ibn Kathir, if he had said it, I tend to very humbly disagree.
अगर आप रोजे ना रख सके कोई not for the health or anything, आप उस जगह खाना खिलाते बाद लोग कहते हैं वो चीज खत्म हो गई थी. Is it true?
Yeah, that's what I believe. This is another example of abrogation. Rich people, to begin with, found it difficult to fast in days other than Ramadan. So the Almighty allowed this concession. But with the passage of time, this was taken away. However, if there is a rich person who starts fasting today, I'll say the same thing to him. Take your time. Do it gradually. But it's not a permanent part of the Sharia anymore. This was my final statement for today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.